If you guys have been following the channel, you will know Chris Buck is one of my favorite guitar players, and Cardinal Black is actually my favorite band. Currently, they are just incredible as a whole. But Chris Buck's guitar tones as of lately have really gotten a lot closer, in my opinion, to a lot of the tones that I frequently discuss on the channel, this being predominantly a John Mayer gear-focused channel. They've kind of started to blend a little bit more into that direction, because when we talk about John's gear, we talk a lot about vintage Fender amplifiers, we talk about high headroom clean amplifiers like Two Rocks, as well as dumbbells, but we'll save dumbbells for a different conversation. But those two amplifiers are heavily featured in that tonal discussion, and that's exactly what Chris Buck is kind of going for in terms of his latest amp rig for the Welcome to the Valencia tour that Cardinal Black is currently going on, because this is his amp rig and it is absolutely insane. Chris is currently touring with 3 different amplifiers to create just a massive wall of sound, and I'm just a big fan of guitar players in general who use multiple amplifiers, because it really just adds a lot of depth and character to their tone by adding different amplifiers in to create a whole different sort of mix. And if you are familiar with the John Mayer thing at all, which I talk about a ton on the channel, obviously, a lot of that sound is a blend of a Fender amplifier and a dumbbell amplifier and a Two Rock, which kind of does the best of both worlds, and that's very similar to what Chris is currently doing here on tour, and as you're about to listen to, he sounds absolutely incredible. And what's really interesting is if you've been keeping up with Friday Fretworks, Chris will post a few different gear reviews throughout each tour, and you've been paying attention to the amps that he's been using. It's seemed to have been evolving a little bit throughout each tour, but it's really seemed to have stabilized as well now, and he's kind of gotten a bit closer to maybe the sound that he's been searching for, or just really happy with the tones he's been getting out of his current amp rig. Now, the most mainstay amplifier that you might be the most familiar with is his brown face Super Reverb, and if you're thinking at this moment, well, wait a minute, Fender never made a brown face Super Reverb, you'd be right. It's actually originally what Chris believes to be a 1960, well, he knows it's a 1967 Super Reverb, but 67 is a very funny year because that's the year that Fender transitioned from the blackface kind of amps to the silver face amplifier, 67 being that exact cutoff year, and Chris actually traced the serial number of his Super Reverb to being next to another silver face Super Reverb amplifier, but of course the actual internals are all still black face supers. So this amplifier, based on Chris's research, would have been a silver face Super Reverb from 1967, but with the internals of a black face Super Reverb that then someone took and converted to a brown face aesthetic. It's a really cool look, to be honest. I really do like how the brown face Fender amplifiers looked. I think it's such an underrated aesthetic in terms of Fender amplifiers, and this is kind of an amplifier he's been using for quite a while now, pairing it up with like clones of a Fender high-powered Tweed Twin, for example, among other amps, but this has been the amplifier he's been using kind of the longest in his rig up until this point. Now, the second brown face amplifier is a true brown face amplifier, as it's a 1961 concert amplifier. I remember watching the Friday Fretworks where Chris actually went and bought this amplifier, and part of the reasoning a little bit was because of the aesthetic to match the brown face Super Reverb and another brown face amplifier, both of them being 410 amplifiers as well. He showed out 2 different Fender concerts, and this one that he bought sounded so incredible. The harmonic trem out of these amplifiers is absurdly good. It is so rich and full sounding, and so Chris has started pairing the Super Reverb and the concert together for 2 410-inch speakered amplifiers together, 2 vintage Fender amplifiers, to create his signature kind of tone up until this point. But then, when it came to the Welcome to the Valencia tour, a surprise addition is the Victory Mark Clean, or MK Clean. I'm not sure if they actually call it Mark or not, but the Victory MK Clean. This amplifier is kind of where the kind of trying to tie it into you guys a little bit for the John Mayer kind of tone thing, where you're having now a very ultra clean high headroomed amplifier paired up now with these vintage Fender amps as well, blending together to create his tone. So these three amplifiers working together are sounding absolutely incredible, and it's easily, in my opinion, the wildest amp rig Chris Buck has had up until this point. And this kind of amp rig is right up my alley in terms of tones that I tend to gravitate towards. I really love the blending of a vintage Fender amplifier with a higher headroom clean amplifier like the Victory MK Clean, because these clean amplifiers can sometimes almost be a little too perfect, but then you blend that with a vintage Fender and you get all of the, beautiful quirks and characteristics that come from an older Fender amplifier where it's not 100% clean. It has some bite, it has some character to it, especially when you are pushing it a little harder, but then you blend that with an amplifier that just has so much headroom, it'll take more overdrive pedals, more gain, it just wants all of that. You create such a unique tone, and that's what I'm trying to kind of go for, something like that with my current amp rig, with my 2-Rock traditional clean and my vintage Vibreverb. Those two together create such an amazing tone that's, in my opinion, a lot better than either amplifier as a standalone. So to see Chris adding the Victory into his amp rig, I think is so cool, because it's just really complementing his rig in terms of the tones he is getting. And as always, this being predominantly a John Mayer gear channel, I always love to tie it into John's tone, because we know John has used the Super Reverb quite a bit in the past, pairing that with an amplifier that, let's be honest, it's very much doing the 2-Rock sort of thing. You have those two amplifiers working together, plus the addition of the Concert, which, from my understanding, Chris is using with the harmonic trem on the entire time. So that's giving you a little bit of depth, a little bit of texture and modulation to his tone. The Super Reverb dead in the middle, and then the Victory on the other side. He's kind of running a dry, wet sort of rig, it would seem at this point. I'm hoping he does a video breaking down his amp rig better than I ever could, but that kind of seems to be something he is going for, and the tones, as you would have heard in a couple clips in this video, are just absolutely stellar. And yeah, when I saw Chris actually pulling out the Victory to add into his amp rig, I just was like, this is so unbelievably cool. I know a lot of you guys are fans of Chris Buck's, him having obviously a very big and amazing presence on YouTube. He's one of my favorite guitar players, and Cardinal Black, just full stop, is my favorite band currently. They're just so damn good. I couldn't not discuss them on the channel, and Chris is just absolutely wild amp rig, kind of the Chris Buck triple amp setup, if you will, and if you get that reference. You've been following the channel for a decent bit of time now. So yeah, I just had to talk about it. If you haven't checked out Cardinal Black, their new EP, Welcome to the Valencia, everything will be linked in the description down below for you to check out Chris demoing the Victory MK Clean, for you to check out the Welcome to the Valencia, the actual EP, and some of Chris's content as well. For whatever reason, if you haven't already and haven't just, figured out that Chris is so unbelievably talented already, go and check out all those links in the description down below. And I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of offshoot topic video for today. But again, like I said, tones that are very near and dear to me, ones that I very much gravitate towards, and I'm sure tones you guys can appreciate as well. Chris, if you happen to watch this video, I know you watched a video I did breaking down the gear you used for Warm Love's live kind of studio solo. I'd love to see you bring up the Shinichi Ubikata ES355. That's one of my favorite guitars that you use. I'm a massive Foo Fighters fan, a massive Dave Grohl fan, and the kind of Trini Lopez inspired diamond F-holes on that guitar I think looks so beautiful. A friend of mine actually owned one of those guitars for a short, brief period of time, and might be the next guitar I get on my list. Personally, I've been really gassing for a kind of hollow body style of guitar, because all my friends are getting one, and I'm kind of feeling a little left out, and I don't really own anything quite like that, so it might be a guitar I try and track down eventually. But hey, just throwing it out there, I'd love to see that guitar return to the stage in your hands, because I don't think I've seen clips of you using it lately. So just something I'd love to see. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video as always, and keep kicking ass with Cardinal Black, man. Absolutely incredible. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to see me discuss any other kind of things of Chris's rig to the best of my abilities. I know he's very transparent with what he does on Friday Fretworks, or at least now Friday Fretworks is kind of taking a pause. Not sure, hopefully he brings it back in some capacity, not every week, but just, touches base with us at some points. But I can try and do my best if that's what you guys are wanting. But anyways, take care everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.